Hi everyone, today I'm sharing my September project life process, and you might notice in the title I've called this one slow scrapping. Now that doesn't mean that the video itself is slow, it's still sped up to my usual 4 times the speed, but when I was actually making these pages, I was really taking my time. I focused on some of the little details that I sometimes skip over when I'm trying to scrapbook more efficiently, and it was really relaxed and mindful, and I think that slowing it down really changed the process for me. And these are some of my favorite pages that I've made in a long time, so I think I will be trying some slow scrapbooking again in the future. Maybe I should make my whole project life process be slow scrapping, because I really enjoyed this. As you can see, I'm starting with my 2 templates that I always start with. They're Becky Higgins Design A templates. I'm using scrapbook.com pages these days, but it's the same Design B design or layout on these pages as what I usually use. And I have already printed up and trimmed down all of my photos before I started this process. And so here I'm just trying to decide which photos I'm going to include. I usually print up a few more than I need just so that I can kind of have some flexibility in what stories I tell and the ways in which I tell them. So some of these were printed up at 2 different sizes, and then I decided as I went which size I would go with. And some of them I actually have just decided to not scrapbook in the interest of having a bit more space on my page for either storytelling or some filler cards or some little opportunities for artistic expression. So this is the general layout that I'm going to go with at this point. So I have a few openings there for some embellishing or some storytelling. I'm also going to be using some flips in this page, and so you will see me create those as I go. I'm enjoying a cup of coffee, and this was an impromptu live stream that I did over on Patreon. So if you're interested in seeing this slowed down process in actual real time and not sped up to 4 times the speed, I do share all of my scrapbooking process videos, a real-time version of them, over on Patreon. So you can head over there. There are links in the information section below for how to get there. That's where I share my process, some of my decision making along the way, as well as how I decide what stories to tell and how I'm going to tell them. So I usually live stream those processes these days, so it's a bit interactive, and you'll see some comments come up from the folks who are watching along. I am using the Ali Edwards September kit here. There are a few stragglers from a previous kit. You can see a couple of summer-themed cards there, but almost all of these are from the September Stories by the Month kit from Ali Edwards. I'm just having a look at what cards I have here so that it can help me decide how I might be going to tell some of these stories. The way I use kits is I do subscribe. So, okay, I'll get back to that idea in a second. But this card here is really catching my eye. It has these 2 ovals. They're like hand-drawn ovals, so they're imperfect. And I like the idea of filling them up with photos. I keep coming back to this, and it's going to be a while. I'm going to have to really think about how to make my photos fit in those ovals. But for now, I've decided I'm going to use that September piece of vellum with the apple paper behind it. And I'm feeling like I wish that that vellum didn't make that paper so subdued and muted just because of the vellum being over it. So I'm going to do something else with that. This is a little feature in Apple Photos. You can actually look at your photos by location on a map. And I thought that was really fascinating. So I took a screenshot of it and just printed up. That is part of the peninsula of Halifax. And a lot of my photos were taken there. So in all of the different locations, including a couple of locations in the middle of the harbor, because those would have been taken on boats or ferries. So that's kind of fun to have that show up in the map as well. So I thought I would document that as part of my September pages. As you can see, I am coming back to this card with the 2 ovals again. I'm thinking about potentially putting one of these photos. This one will probably go on there. And this one might also fit in one of those ovals. So I was thinking maybe, these two go together, sort of. They're both mother-daughter activities that I was doing with Liv. And in the process, I got distracted by these other embellishments that are part circles. And now I'm also distracted by the September vellum. So as I mentioned, I didn't love how this vellum was covering all those beautiful watercolor apples and pears. So I decided to cut down September and just leave a small vellum outline around it. And I will glue it onto that apple and pear watercolor card that came in the kit. And that will give me a nice little, I guess, a title card. I'm going to use my Tombow mono adhesive here. This is just a tape runner that I like to use. And I'm just going to put it where the gold is so that it doesn't show up. This adhesive does have a little bit of a blue hint to it, tint to it, I should say. And so I didn't want it to show up. So I just put it where the gold was because the vellum is opaque there. And now I am using a slick surface writer because the vellum is a slick surface, but also the gold foil is also a slick surface. And I'm going to change tips because this is my Mono Twin marker, which is a permanent marker to use on slick surfaces. It's actually oil-based, and I really like how the rich black that it is. And so it wasn't quite bold enough when I was using the fine point, so I decided to use the bullet point instead. And this is just giving me a little bit more of differentiation between the word September and that beautiful watercolor pattern on the back of the card, on the background. And I want this to look a little bit like it's been handwritten, so I'm going to add the lines in for where the pen marks would overlap with each other. I forgot one. I'll go back and add it a little bit later. And I think I got one of them wrong, actually. So I didn't quite think it through as well as I should have, but it looks okay. I actually quite like it. So here we go. I always like to pull down my pages just to show how it's shaping up as we go. So far we just have that September title card. I have some ideas for these as well. I would really like to use these half circles also to hold some photos. And so I'm thinking about that as well, but I have a more concrete idea about using these. So, and I'm noticing even more embellishments here that came in the Stories by the Month kit. So I'm getting a little bit distracted by that. Now, I did go on my computer and do a little bit of fiddling, and I cut that part out. I do like to share my entire process or as much of my process in these process videos, but there are some parts of my process that just get cut so that the video isn't too long. Already this one is a pretty long one. So if you're interested in especially my computer behind the scenes work, that's all on the Patreon. So you can check that out over there. I'm sorry that I forgot to take away that window. I can see further down the line that I do close that window off. But in the meantime, my apologies for covering up some of that. What I did was I basically traced the shape that I need on vellum, which is a nice see-through medium that I have easy access to in my room. I've got a whole stack of vellum. And so I traced the shape, and then I cut it out, and then I traced it onto my photo in such a way that I was not cutting out any of the important parts of the story here. Basically, I just wanted a picture that shows that it's me and Liv, and that shows that we were coloring in our coloring books together on the couch there. So I did a little bit of trimming and trying and trimming and trying and ended up with it looking the way that I wanted it to look. I wanted it to have I wanted some of that golden color around the edges of this moment oval to show. I guess it's more of an orangey than a golden color. I wanted that to show. Now I'm going to repeat the whole process with this other photo, and I didn't have to reprint this photo because it just happened to be sized such that I could include the important elements. I did have to cut out my controller, but the important elements is that there was one screen on the TV of Animal Crossing. That was my daughter's island. And then on my Switch 2, which is closer to the viewer of the picture, That's my island, and we were Animal Crossing together. So those were 2 activities that we did together in the month of September that I just wanted to make sure that I captured. Now, this looks really nice as a 4x6 card, but I want to use it in 2 3x4 inch pockets, and I think I might actually want to spread them around the layout so that I can benefit from the repetition that it gives. It can give some balance on my page. So, although I often want to outline these sorts of things, I refrain from outlining these particular elements, and instead I'm doing my journaling around the edge of the oval. It just says mother-daughter Animal Crossing with Liv, and then on the other one it says mother-daughter Coloring with Liv. I thought about putting them fairly close to one another, and then I decided I would spread them out even more just to benefit from that repetition. It gives the page a more balanced, pulled together look. Now I do have these half circles, and they do face each other. So I've got 2 facing one direction and 2 facing the other direction. And I'm going to use these as mats for my photo, for these photos as well. I have 2 other similar photos. These 2 are documenting 2 separate FaceTime conversations. It turns out they were on the same day. I didn't realize that when I was documenting it, but I'm just doing the same thing with the vellum to make a template, cutting it out, and then I can easily see what's going to be included in the photo as well. Trace around it, cut it down, and then I am going to have to do a tiny bit of fiddling with it just to make sure. I basically want there to be a nice little green edge around the edge of the whole photo. And I actually want a tiny, tiny bit of the cream color to be showing as well on that mat. So it's not just the green. I wanted some of the cream to be showing through. So it's a bit of a double matted. It looks like it's double matted, but it's only on one piece of the cardstock embellishments there. So we'll just keep trimming as needed until it looks smooth and gives me the right kind of ratio all the way around. Then we'll use our dry adhesive or tape runner there just to glue that down. That is a photo of Sophie and myself FaceTiming, and John Cena's there in the background. You might not be able to see him depending on how informed you are on the meme, but he's there, believe it or not. We've got another FaceTime from what turns out to be just a few minutes later. It's a 3-way FaceTime. I'm in this one, but in order for me to cut it on the edge that it needs to be cut for these 2 to face each other, I have to cut myself out of the photo. So I have a workaround for that. I'm keeping this little bit that I cut off, and my little picture-in-picture is down in the corner there. It was on the bottom left-hand corner. I cut it out, and I'm just going to glue it so that it's on the bottom right-hand corner so that it can be clear that I was part of that conversation as well. I'm going to go through the same process of just slimming this down so that there's a bit of a white border around the edge or an off-white border around the edge. And then I'm going to just kind of keep on keeping on until it looks like it's going to fit. I placed the little tiny photo of me in the center of that details card so that I didn't lose it. You can see it right over by my scissors. And then I'm just going to take some wet glue because it's a little bit harder to get the dry glue where I need it to go. And I'm using Tombow Mono multi-adhesive for that. And now those 2 are finished. And I just have to decide what card I want to put those on. And ooh, I love the idea of this vellum with the bands of color. And I thought about having it be contrasting so that the green was on the yellow and the yellow was over by the blues and greens. But when I turned it over and noticed how perfectly these align with the green half circle being aligned perfectly with the green bar and the yellow half circle being perfectly aligned with the yellow bar, I just couldn't resist doing it this way. So this is what I'm doing. I'm trying to put the word FaceTime on here, and I measured and saw that I need these letters to be about 1/4 of an inch. These letters are quite a bit less than 1/4 of an inch, but I thought they would do. I do like to include my entire process. So you're going to see me go down this path quite a bit before I realize that I don't actually like this, but let's just see how it goes. I decided that who knows what card is going to be on the back of this, so I thought I would use a piece of inexpensive 4x6 cardstock on the back of it just to make it be opaque. But first, I'm going to use one of my MTK grid cards so that I can line these letters up properly. I don't want to waste a grid card in this way, and I don't particularly like the look of the grid showing through, but it makes it really easy for designing and lining up my letter stickers. So if I were to write FaceTime, I would have to spread out the letters like this, and it would have looked fine like that. But I do know that I have a pretty large assortment of thickers over in my thicker storage Rascog. So I went and got some of those instead. I'm going to put my small letters back. I do keep those in a little photo album because they're perfectly sized 4x6. I'm going to measure some of these letters to try to figure out. I've got one by Hip Kit Club, and then the rest are all different kinds of thickers from American Crafts. I've decided I'm going to go with these ones. These ones have a little bit of a glitter, and I think they're called Journal, and they're black, and they've got glitter on the surface of them, and I just really like how they look. They're the thinnest of the ones that I had picked out there. So I'm putting the A and the C in the center because those are the two middle letters of the word face. And then I'll place the F and the E like that. I have not glued down my 2 half circles because I figured I would glue them depending upon how much space I had once the word FaceTime is in place. So for now, I'm just leaving them there for spacing purposes, but pretty soon I'm going to move them out of the way because once face is there, that determines the width, and then I'm going to make time be exactly underneath of the word face, taking up the same amount of space, which means that the letters will be a little bit differently placed because of the M and the I being unusually wide and thin, respectively. So there we go. We will put all of those thickers away back in my Rascog now. And let's see how these semicircles line up right here. So I'm having the same amount of yellow bar showing and the same amount of green bar showing on the other side so that these two, I mean, look at them. They look like they were designed to do that with. And maybe that's what she had in mind. I mean, this is a kit, so of course it's all designed to go together. But I think it just looks amazing. And I'm really, really pleased with it. That gives me some space below the word FaceTime to do a little bit of journaling. So I am going to grab my template for journaling. Oops, let's just scooch that letter E down just a tiny little bit so that it's aligned with the rest of the word. And I'm going to use my pencil to draw some lines ahead of time. And then I'm using, again, that same slick surface writer. That's a Tombow Mono Twin marker. And I think I'm using it looks like I'm using the fine tip for this. And my journaling just says FaceTiming with Sophie and John Cena for the win. My daughter has a life-size cutout of John Cena in her dorm room. I don't ask any questions. I just go along with it. She's gone thrift shopping and found him a safety vest, and there we go, adding a bit of a line to the September. And yeah, it looks like she and her roommate and floor mates are having a good time with John Cena behind the scenes, in between, I assume, some heavy-duty studying sessions that I assume are happening. This is a photo of my other daughter's street where she lives. And I'm going to do some journaling. I keep these journaling templates in Pages, which is the word processor that is kind of, I guess, the default word processor from Apple products. And it's already sized to 3x4, and I use Veteran Typewriter as my font, and my journaling here just says, "This is Henry Street where Liv's house is. It's beautiful mixture of old, beautiful restored homes and old homes that are turned into flats for students." also known as not so beautiful, but pretty decently nice. They have good bones. They're not all super well cared for, but some of them are immaculately beautifully cared for. So it's kind of an interesting walk down the street. It's a very, very long street, and it ranges at the end. They're especially beautiful. So we have some journaling there. I just print it out on a piece of cardstock first, just to double check where it's going to align on the photo. It turned out that it was aligning perfectly on the first try. So I just ran the photo back through my printer this time to get the words on it. And if you're more interested in the details of that process, you can check out my Patreon. Next, I have this 6x4-inch spot that is going to hold a bunch of different photos from a soccer game that we went to. We're lucky that our city has a couple of pro soccer teams. We have a men's soccer team and a women's soccer team. And we were at this one in particular was the men's team. Because this is going to be a tent fold flap, I am using a 6x8 piece of cardstock from a previous kit, probably from Kelly Perky, could also be from Allie Edwards. And I just score at the halfway point, which gives me a perfectly sized 4x6 tent card. And now I'm just placing a photo on the very top of that fold. So this will just slide into the pocket, and then the fold will be on the outside of the page protector. On the bottom, I'm going to have these two photos, and I'm going to use a magnet so that this doesn't flap around too much. This is a fairly new addition to my process. For the past couple of months, I've been using these little magnet discs that I got. And I'm really enjoying the process. It does add an extra step, but I do like the finished result, which is a flap that doesn't move around quite so much when you're turning the pages of your project. So I'm just sticking it down with dry adhesive. If you were super worried about it, I think that liquid adhesive would probably hold it more strongly, but I'm not too worried about it. It seems to work fine here. Then what I do is I make the other magnet stick to the magnet that I have glued in, and then I put glue on the back side of it and kiss it closed, and then it sticks to the other side in exactly the right place. And then I place the photo over top of it. I hope I explained that right, but hopefully between my explanation and seeing what I did there, you get the idea of how to do this. I'm going to be adding a third inside picture right here. So we've got one 4x6 on the outside and three 3x4s on the inside. And I would love to spell out the word wanderers, but first let's put away the letters that spell out the word face that I did not use on FaceTime. I'd like to spell out the word wanderers, but I want it to be in blue because that's the team's colors. I'm going to spell out the word so that I don't get mixed up about how to spell it. It has a lot of E's and R's, so sometimes when I'm spelling out things, I lose track of what I'm doing, especially when I'm also talking to people on the live stream. So I wound up going with this set by Paper Person. Oh my goodness, I miss her kits. So anyhow, we have not all of the letters that we need, but I'm going to do a little bit of letter surgery here to get the letters that I need. So I'm using my grid mat. I am using if you've noticed a difference, I'm using a Glassboard Studio working mat here for this video, and I love this. There will be a video coming up talking about this Glassboard mat and how much I love it. Here I'm taking an 8 and I'm turning it into an S. The way I do that is just that way that I just showed. I think that watching it, if you missed it, you can rewind and watch on a slower speed. But basically, you put two little slits into the top and bottom part of the 8, and then you cut off the extra pieces. I find looking at the letter S helps me figure out which pieces need to be taken off while I do it. and because I don't have a very good visual memory. I have almost no visual memory, so I always have to look. Now, as you can see, it's not Wanda Peps, it is Wanderers is the name of the team. So I need to change those P's into R's, and I just took the two little extra pieces, not extra pieces, but the top and the bottom part of the Z, and got the little pieces and made the P's into R's. There you go. So we have the word Wanderers up there. That's the name of the men's team that we were watching this day. And I have, right, so I think I was talking about those Kelly Perky letter stickers and how much I miss her kits. I don't know if I was supposed to say more about that. I lost track of what I was saying. These are obviously not scripted narrations. I think I was getting somebody caught up to somebody had joined the stream who wasn't here before. So what I love about these Kelly Perky cards, they're 6x8 cards that I love including as flaps, and I'm not looking forward to the day when I use the last of them up. But what I love about them is that they're very thick and heavy, and they're really great for a flap because they're durable. They hold up to the scoring process and the folding process. Also, the flip side of them is always lined with this beautiful notebook paper. So I chose one that is lined in a really light blue line so that it matches with the blues that are already happening here. I decided to just do my journaling. It says we are finally getting a chance to attend some soccer games. We're so grateful to have a pro team here in Halifax. We actually have two, but I didn't say that in the journaling. I'm going to put this embellishment that came in the kit. It says I Heart September, and I'm placing it, even though it's kind of weird to have a weird head sitting above it there that I didn't cover. I could have raised it up a little bit to just cover all of that guy's head, but the purpose here was not to hide the audience. This photo was specifically taken to show the stands, and so I don't know, I didn't want to erase a person who was there, so I just placed it a little bit lower so that he was still there, even though I don't know him or anything. It just was also, I liked it lower from a design perspective as well. So now I would like to use one of these embellishments, these circle embellishments that came in the kit. And this one, so I'm choosing the blue one because it fits with the team colors. It says remembering and documenting. I'm going to place it right down here. It's going to fill up that space that I don't have any journaling for. And I'm just going to take a piece of chipboard from my stash. This is mostly Ali Edwards with a little bit of Kelly Perky chipboard pieces mixed in. I keep them sorted by color in these IKEA trays. These are not the most durable trays, but I really love them. They stack beautifully in my Alex drawer and they get the job done. They are made out of like a really thick, it's like a paper product, so it's not plastic, but it seems to do. It's working so far. I'm just going to be a little bit too attentive to details here as I try to pick which thing to go in the center of this half circle. I ended up deciding on this heart, and I'm going to staple it because I don't want to staple it to the photo because there's a photo on the back side. I don't want to staple it to the card because there's a photo on the back that's already there. Now, I was going to use a little pre-made chipboard tab to indicate, especially when I use magnets, because it won't flap around as much. It's not as obvious that there's a flip to open here. So I want to put a tab on these flaps. And the first tab that I had picked out was chipboard. It didn't work with the color scheme. It was just a weird color of yellow. So I've decided to use these little tags. These tags came in the Stories by the Month kit. I just glue one to each other, like back to back. And then I I just made it smaller so that it's going to be easier for me to stick it in between the layers so that it can become a little handle that you can use to open this flap. I'm going to use Tombow Mono Multi-Adhesive because that's super strong adhesive and it will definitely not come undone. Because I've pulled this apart a couple of times and there's a magnet in there, I also use the Tombow Mono Multi to glue the photo down to the structure of the tent flap. So now that one is done and I have these two to do. They're not really related to each other, but I'm scrapping them at the same time. I don't know why, maybe because they're in pockets beside each other. So I'm having a look at what embellishments I already have here on hand, and also thinking about how this one might fit on a 3x4 card. The smaller photo there is printed at 2x3. That's my other favorite size to print things at. Most of my photos are printed either at 4x6, 3x4, or 2x3. So this is one of the 2x3s. Now, both of these are, I guess what the reason I'm scrapping them together is they're both kind of movie related. One of them is me watching a movie by myself one night when I was on my own for the evening. And the other one is a photo of our movie club. We meet at different local breweries every month. And so they're related in that way. So I took out all of my movie related stamps, and I'm just having a look at what I might want to stamp on, especially this one here. I like this photo because it's kind of moody. It's taken quite late at night, not super late, but as late as, I don't stay up much later than 10 these days. But it's kind of like a cozy photo of my living room that's usually taken. I usually only have pictures of my living room in the daytime, so this is a bit of a different vibe, and I really like it. I adore this little stamp of the couch, and then there's a phrase that goes along with it that says, "Meet me on the couch." Now, not all of that phrase is going to fit here, but I'll show you what I'm going to do. So first, I stamp the photo up on I stamp the couch up on the ceiling of my photo, and now I'm going to just selectively ink "Meet me on the." I'm going to stamp that down there, and then I will clean my stamp, dry it off, and then I'm going to selectively ink "couch" and stamp that underneath. Now I have this thing where I don't like things that belong on the ground or on the floor to be floating on a photo, so I don't love this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a line that will just anchor my couch and not make it feel quite so much like it's floating there on my ceiling, because that's weird. I just drew a line and then some dashes, and then I put a little circle at the end of the line as well. This is my folder that I keep my 8.5 by 11 printables. These are labels. Some of them are from MTK kits from back in the day when we used to have a kit club. They were digital files that came with the kits. So if you've ever purchased one of our kits, you would have these files somewhere in your emails. Also, I provide these labels to my tiaras as free digital files, as well as some other kind of print and cut type things over on Patreon. So that's another way to get these if you don't have them already. I'm cutting this down, and the more I place it on this photo, the more large it seems. It seems like it's just not quite balanced. It's a little bit too much white on this moody photo. I want to keep the vibe of the moodiness, and it just introduces way too much white. So I found these other labels in my stickers of labels. This one I believe is from Studio Calico. It's gold with white and some lines for drawing your journaling on. So I'm going to use that instead. And I'm just going to journal on it. It says, "Scott worked overnight at Apple. I watched Kiki's delivery service." And that's about all I'm saying about that. I am using I'm accidentally using my Mono Twin marker. And when you use a slick surface marker on porous paper, it does bleed a little bit. So the writing is not as crisp as I would like it to be. But once I started, I just continued because it doesn't look that bad. Moving on to the next card, we have the photo of Movie Club at the local brewery. And I need to figure out what card it's going to go on. So let's have a look at the cards that are in this kit. Oh, I love those 1, 2, 3, those big fat 1, 2, 3. Got to think of a way to use that. My first thought is that I could use one of these details cards. There's a couple of them. And then there's also this documenting September card. And I honestly can't decide between the two. We also have this other card with these bars that you could use for journaling. And I'm just going to try it on all of them. There's 3 of those detail cards in different colors, so that's kind of an interesting thing too, to offer some repetition. So as I try to decide, I guess I'm kind of at this point leaning towards the details card, but I'm going to ultimately decide to use the Documenting September card. It just fits better for me, and I would have to reprint or cut down the photo in order. I would want it to fit within the color block on the details card, and I just decided I liked it better with the Documenting September. And I'm thinking about potentially using one of these little banners. These little embellishments are perfectly sized to run the width of a 3x4-inch card. So I could always use one of those, but I also have a few things to say about this. Not too much, because there's a lot of these kinds of photos in my previous months of Project Life, and I don't need to say for every single one of them, we have a movie club and we meet at breweries. So I'm going to just kind of keep it short for this one, because anybody who's sitting down and looking at my album is going to recognize this and know what it is from previous I almost said posts, but I guess previous pages where I documented it. I'm looking for some potential movie-themed stamps, but as you can see, I don't have a whole lot of space to work with here. So I am trying to think about whether there might be a phrase I could use or something like that. I want to say this was the meeting where we were talking about just The Sopranos. We actually didn't watch a movie this month. Some months we usually watch one movie and then one or two episodes of The Sopranos, and we'll go and talk about all three or both. For this one, we couldn't decide on a movie, so we just decided, in the interest of time, because too much time was going by and we hadn't picked one yet, we just decided to watch a couple of episodes of the show. So I've got this stamp that says currently watching, and it has a line above it, so it's a perfect place for me to put Sopranos. So I will just hand write The Sopranos on there, and I'm using a golden colored pen. I almost used my Sharpie pen, but instead I'm going to use my Sarasa Clip Zebra pen, which is in this beautiful harvest gold color. I'm writing out The Sopranos, and it is the same color as the title that says Documenting September. So I really like how that balances out. And then, as you can see, I have that little gap on to the left of the words currently watching. And in that space, I am going to hand write the words movie club. Now, all that I'm doing here is I'm going back. I just wrote it fairly casually and quickly in my own handwriting. And then I'm just going back and I'm adding little bell bottoms and flares on the tops and bottoms of some of the lines, most of the lines where I can do it. And then I'm just thickening up some of the lines. There's a little bit of extra space there, so I added an exclamation point, and that just fills up that space quite nicely. That font, by the way, is called Jaunty. It's a font that I learned quite a number of years ago, and I'm a little out of practice. I used to be really good at making that font nice and big and consistently sized and shaped. And now it's always very wonky because I just don't practice it often enough. Every time I make it, my letters are all different sizes and shapes, but I kind of like that wonky look, to be honest. Next, I have a couple of photos here about the cat care. Our cat care routine has changed a little bit since our kids have moved out, because Liv is the one who does, who used to cut their nails, because she just had an interest in cat care and took on that role. Since she's been moved out, she put us on a rotation so that we cut one set of claws per week instead of cutting all 5 sets of claws at once, which creates a lot of stress among our feline population here and makes everybody's lives a little difficult for that one day. So instead, we just kind of grab one of them, scoop them up, and cut their claws while the other cats are still not quite clued into what's going on. And then it's over and done with before a whole lot of stress ends up happening. I wanted to use this vellum that says September Joys, not because it's necessarily all that relevant to my topic, but I just really like that thick font that she's using on those vellum pieces. So I glued it down using Tombow Mono Multi because it's on a flap and it's going to be handled, and I don't want the adhesive coming up. So Tombow Mono Multi is very strong, and I think it'll stand up to a lot of handling. So I'm also going to use a little piece of scrap cardstock here, and I'm going to stamp out the phrase cat care as part of my title. So it's going to say September Joys, and then the subtitle is going to be cat care. I'm not sure that cat care is all that much of a joy, but our cats are a joy. So we love having them around, and cat care is part of that process. Now, because I'm talking to my tiaras while we do this, I am going to misspell. I'm just going to say cat here, and that's a mistake. So I'm just going to cut through some of this. You don't have to see me stamping out every one of these letters. So now that I have that stamped out, I'm just going to trim it down with my little trimmer here, and I'm going to glue this right underneath the word September Joys. I'm going to put it a little bit off center there, not centered the way it is right now. I'm just going to use my Tombow Mono Multi adhesive to stick that down right there. And I like how that flap is working. That flap is made from it was a 6x8 piece of cardstock from Kelly Perky, that big collection of 6x8 cards that I have. I have already used the other half of it for another flip like this. So it was already cut in half. So it's actually 3x8 instead of 6x8, but it folds down to a 3x4. There's not going to be any photos on the outside of this one. This is unusual for me. Usually I have a photo on the outside and you open it up to see the decorations of the journaling. But in this case, it's like a filler card, but you open it up and there are photos underneath of it. One of them is a photo of Liv giving the cats the treat that she gives them when she cuts their nails. And then the other one is a photo of the cat dishes. We got them new cat dishes maybe 6 or 8 months ago, and I really love them. They're really cute, and they came conveniently in a set of 5, and we do have 5 cats, so that makes feeding them wet food a little bit easier. We used to have a couple of sets of 3, so there was always one that was missing or in a different place. And also we changed to a different cat food company about maybe 8 or 9 months ago as well. And I just put the new can there. It's easily identifiable because it has the Canadian flag on it, which I don't know. I just kind of like that. I like looking in and seeing, oh, right, we've got the new cat food. Every once in a while when we run out, we still have a stash of the old cat food, and it's easy to identify which one you're giving them because just that big lid has the big giant red flag on it. Excellent branding for the company, by the way. Now I have another photo here. This is a photo of the living room on an afternoon, basically after, like the kids don't live here anymore. So this is what the house looks like most afternoons. There's nobody's switches except for my own or things. Not that the kids were they didn't really leave clutter around the house anyways, but it's very devoid of any teenager presence these days. And so I just took a picture of it like that. The cat was all cozy on the pillow on top of the ottoman there. I have a stamp set in my home set. This is a Kelly Perky set about just basically being home. And it says and then you can put all different things like kitchen or bathroom or living room, bedroom. And so I just am stamping out living room as just a thing to stamp on the top where the ceiling is. It's just a little bit of a blank space on the photo. And now I want to put something ideally in this big chunk of flooring that's just brown there. But as I go to design this, I just feel like it works better in the corner. It just provides a little bit of balance with in the living room stamp in the top corner. I could put it there, and it certainly does fill the gap of that brown floor, but I end up putting it here because I like it better. It gives a little bit more balance on the page. Because that is those colorful stripes, they show up elsewhere on the page, so that is repetition. But also it gives me a place to put my journaling. So it says coffee shop vibes on the TV and cats curled up equals fall vibes. So Coffee Shop Vibes is a YouTube channel that streams this AI picture of a coffee shop. It changes through the seasons and just generic jazz music. And I just really like playing that when I'm home alone. So that's what is on. I also really like the image on the TV. Makes my room look nice and cozy. I'm going to be combining another card with another piece of vellum here. I love these vellum additions to the kits these days. It gives you so many options. It certainly is a generous kit. There are a lot of cards and vellum included in this Stories by the Month kit. And so lots of options for either a whole lot of cards or the option to combine cards like this. Now, this is another 6x8 card from Kelly Perky that I'm cutting down. I folded it in half and then I cut a quarter out of it so that it's going to fit in a 4x6 pocket, but only 3x4, only this 3x4 part of it is going to be a flip up. So I'm going to be including that photo of my office, my work office, and not my home office. It's on a rainy fall morning. It really captures the vibe of, going to work at 7 a.m. It's still dark out and it's only going to get worse. But I just wanted to kind of capture that. It was a rainy day, and so it was darker than usual outside. I might have actually been at work as early as 6 or 6:30 that particular day, because it's not. I don't think it's dark at 7. That's a little extreme. This is going to be covered, so I decided to use my Tombow Mono Multi along the details as well, because it is going to be covered by this little embellishment that came in the kit. It says in the season. It says 09 for September, of course, and it says Pieces of September in gold foil underneath of it. So that's the card that I'm going to adhere to the top of this mechanism that I have here. We're just going to add a little one of those magnet pieces before I glue this in place. For once, I'm remembering instead of needing to pull apart my layers and add the magnet after the fact. So I'm adding the magnet just by its magnetization, if that's a word. And then I'm adding adhesive to the back side of it, kissing it to the bottom, and now it is adhered on the bottom in exactly the right place that it needs to be. I'm going to be including this photo from my daughter's Instagram account, just from one of her stories. And I'll be matting that on a piece of vellum, just using up this vellum. There's so much of it included in the kit, and it doesn't do me any good in my stash. I want to get these pieces of beautiful, vellum and cards and whatnot into my album right now, because I've got another kit coming. It's in the mail. By the time I go to scrapbook my October pages, this kit will be replaced. So let's get as much of it used as we can. Now I have to think about where this card goes, because I'm going to put another one of these little handles. So again, these are the little tiny tabs that come in the Stories by the Month kit. I'm going to be rounding the corners like I did before, glued it to each other, so back to back, so that it's basically double-sided. And I'm rounding the corners so that it provides just a little tiny handle. I've decided to put the handle on this side, and I've actually moved where this card will be, so that if it was going to be in the other pocket, that little handle might be interfering with the rings of the binder. Like I wouldn't like where that would sit. So I'm going to place it in the right hand pocket instead of the left hand pocket, so that it'll overlap with the other card instead of the handle hanging out into the space where the 3-ring binder is in my album. I'm moving that photo just so it's a little bit off center, like a little bit askew. And then I'm going to use another piece of vellum here and just glue it down to the flap like this. And that blue vellum with the circles on it might have been from one of the summer kits. It might not have come in this particular Stories by the Month kit. I'm journaling right along where the sofa is in my office to say early morning rain at work, or early raining morning at work. Something like that. Then we have a little kitty cat break as Lila enters my scrap room, and I had a little request for someone on the stream who wanted to see the kitty. So there she is. She's my 11-year-old Seal Point Siamese. We have almost all Siamese in our feline family. Then we're back to work here. So we have this photo here, which is a photo of my mom's cat at my mom's house. So I'm just going to place this right here as Lila makes yet another appearance and decides to sit right on my page. She was purring so loud that I thought I needed to move my microphone so that viewers could hear it, but it turns out they could hear her because she was so loud. I'm going to do a little bit of journaling around this if Lila will let me. And there we go. She is a demanding little one. When she wants attention, she really wants attention. She wants to lay on my lap, and I'm not seated in a position that allows her to do that, and she's just not used to it. This is why I usually close my door when I'm scrapbooking, but I'm home alone today, so that's why I ended up leaving my door open. I'm going to use this roller date stamp. This is actually the Ali Edwards one. It's a little bit smaller than a standard roller date stamp, and I love the petite look on my pages. So I'm just stamping the date there, which is September 22nd. And now I have these two to do. So first I'm going to do this one. I already told you what this photo is. It is all of the photos I've taken based on their location on a map. And I want to put a little bit of journaling on this, and I also want to use up some of these embellishments. So I have this yellow circle that says remembering and documenting. I'm going to cut off the white part of it, and I'm going to glue it right onto the photo like that. I didn't want to cover up any of the photos there. And oops, I did it a little bit crooked, and I thought about fixing it, but I think I'm just going to leave it. I don't think you can really tell that it's all that crooked, so I'm just going to leave it. I'm journaling here. It says locations of photos I've taken. And this is very me. I love data that is presented in a visually appealing way. So I'm in love with that photo. Definitely had to go into my project life. Now beside it, I had two options of what to document. And one of them was a Taylor Swift movie that we watched together, her Eras concert, which the girls attended, but I and Scott did not. And then the other one is just documenting the girls' 2 rooms now that they're not lived in anymore. They look very sterile, and I just wanted to document that. So I'm going to go back to using these remaining 2 semicircles that I have. They say this memory, and it's nice to repeat the element in a slightly different way. So there's lots of semicircles, circles, and ovals on this page in lots of different places. And so this just repeats that. I'm going to use my journaling template here if Lila can leave me be. She's attacking my pencil, but I managed to get those lines in there. And now I'm just documenting Liv's room is so empty without her. We are lucky she's close enough to visit often. I'm just journaling that with my Sharpie pen because it's just regular paper here that I'm writing on. Going to go ahead and underline that so that my journaling feels like it has a home. And then I'm just going to center this center it vertically on the edge of the photo. Now this one will go on the other edge of the photo, and I'm just going to, again, use those same, I placed that a little bit off to the edge so that it wasn't able to be aligned with my lines properly. So see what I'm doing there? I want it to be, there's a gap in the middle of my journaling template, and the gap was right in the middle of where my lines were supposed to be. So I had to move it over a little bit. I just used temporary adhesive to glue that to my Glassboard Studio glass mat. Now on the other one, which will go underneath of the first one, it says Sophie's room is so chock full of her personality, it almost feels like she's still here. And more underlining so that these two match, and then I'll put this on the other side. And this is a theme with my girls where they have this kind of comparing and contrasting opposite personalities, opposite ways of life. And I like this theme just kind of comes up quietly over and over again in my project life. They have sister tattoos, one has a sun and one has a moon. So on this photo, without kind of going into a big long explanation, this photo does a good job of mirroring that idea of the two different personalities by having the journaling on one side for one of them and on the other side for the other one of them. I'm making another one of these pull tabs, and instead of making it be a flip, for this one, because it's in the top, it's easy to put a little, just one photo tucked behind the other one. So that's what I'm going to do there, just to not have quite so many flips and add just a different way to interact with that pocket as opposed to how you interact with the other pockets. Now, I am including this process. I'm just going to very quickly set these up to get a good look at them, take a couple of pictures, and then I'm going to slip them into the pockets. And I'm including this process because I know a few of you viewers find this to be satisfying. So every once in a while, I include this process. Now, before we jump into the final photos, I just want to give a quick shout out to my amazing Patreon supporters. You're going to see their names in a few minutes on my screen, and these folks truly helped make this channel happen. I'm so grateful for each and every one of them, so make sure you take a look at that screen when it comes up. You'll also see some photos after that give you some close-ups of these cards and how they look before they went into the pockets. So those folks over on Patreon, I call them tiaras, and they get early ad-free access to all of my process videos, plus real-time unedited versions of my videos, often in the form of live streams. They also get exclusive behind-the-scenes content of my craft room and my process and sneak peeks into things that are coming down the line for my channel. A big thank you to you also for watching all the way to the end. Again, I'm MercyTiara, and I love sharing my full creative process with you, including all the little decisions and lessons that I learn along the way and mistakes that I make. So be sure to check out the links at the end of this video to dive into my collection of process videos. I hope that you enjoyed this page and enjoy these close-up photos. As always, stay tuned for scrappy inspiration, and until next time, take care and have a really great scrappy week.